welcome back to the studio. If you're new, I'm SLEW. Something I don't talk about often on this channel that I get asked all the time is where I draw my inspiration from. I have talked about it before and I'll say it again right now briefly. Outside of this studio painting and making videos, I'm very into science fiction and fantasy. You know, I read Brandon Sanderson novels. I love all the adventure science fiction movies, and a lot of that also comes from the stories in ancient Greek and Roman mythology. You know, I've obviously painted a lot of Medusas. I have the mural, I have the paintings. There's Cyclopses up and down the studio. I love Cyclopses. That actually derived directly from the Odyssey, the epic Greek poems by Homer. And so this project, the Sword and Serpent, the merchandise collection of my hoodies, also the painting that we're gonna paint, it derives from another Greek and Roman story, Hercules or Heracles, his 12 labors. It's kind of a famous story, and one of the most famous and known of those 12 labors is the Lemurian Hydra, the 9-headed snake. And so this is kind of my ode to that. You know, it's just my take on that brief story, a sword and a serpent. Obviously the snake doesn't have 9 heads, but it's just like my take on it, and that's what I was inspired by to make this illustration. And it was interesting that I've never done drawing this digital painting or rubric, you could say, on my iPad. I needed to take care of both making a graphic image for the garments, for the hoodies and beanies, and also composing something that was gonna be nice to paint. So kind of those two categories with one original illustration. And we're gonna get to painting in a second, but I thought that was interesting. It was such a blast, and I think it came out great. It kind of is very simple and elegant. I've said this many times. I think there is a lot of elegance and simplicity, and so I kind of kept it simple with just a sword and a snake. Very basic, but I think the iconography there is very apparent, and yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. So let's start this painting. So we got this big old beefy delicious wooden panel. It's 24 by 24 inches, 2 feet by 2 feet, a beautiful square. This is actually the biggest wooden panel I think I've ever painted on. I love them. They're super solid, super fun, and specifically with wooden panels, I like to tape off a frame. I don't really do this at all with canvas or illustration board. I like to frame out wooden panels because the wooden texture is really nice, I think, to expose and do kind of like the painting in the middle. So that's what I like to do. I did quite a large one. I think this was 2+ inches of a bordered frame. And right here I took the digital illustration I made, printed it out to the size I want. It's about 15 inches, and we're just doing a quick carbon copy to get my digital illustration that I made, which is an original illustration, onto the wooden board, and boom, it works out wonderfully. I also sprayed it with some fixative so it doesn't smudge while I gesso it during this second stage. And this gesso, again, is an acrylic primer to just seal the painting surface we're working on. And so it's kind of hard to see in this shot, but I can really see that carbon copy through the white paint, and I knew that going into it. These are kind of thin layers of gesso. Even now, you can't really see it from the camera, but in person, I was able to see it quite easily. And we got some acrylic paint, and I'm just kind of flatting out the really simple colors of this illustration. Like I said, it's a really basic illustration. It's not very complex. It's elegant and simple, but clean and well composed. But there's only a few colors. You know, there's green for the snake, there's the sword handle, and the sword, and that's really all the colors. And we're gonna get more complex as time goes. But for this first layer of acrylic, this is kind of the order of operations with acrylic. You know, I'm not doing much blending. These are just flatting the colors out, okay? And like I said before, this sword and serpent imagery was to really take care of both the graphic embroidery on the garments, on the hoodies and beanies, but also to be painted into some stylized graphic painting. And usually when I go towards these fantastical, sort of cartoony, not realistic things, I use acrylic paint and I love it. But midway through, you could see, not even very beginning stages, I was like, I want to use oil paint, and I'm feeling weird and wacky and crazy, and I never paint oils with fantastical stuff. All the characters I have, oil paint is really reserved just for naturalistic painting, portraiture, things like that. I know a lot of artists use acrylic as underpaintings and then they paint on top with oil. I've never done it, but like I said, I'm feeling crazy. Slight audible, huge audible. I also don't know what textures I want to get because oil paint presents a whole new variety of textures and problem solvings and things you can make things look like other things. And so yeah, acrylic is great, oil is great also. Both of them together, I've never done it, so this is going to be a first for me. But I'm very familiar with both. It's just the idea of, you know, the style of painting. There's different techniques I had in my brain ready to go with acrylic to execute this painting, and switching to oil, my whole kind of strategy changed. But I was pretty confident, and right off the bat when I started painting with oils on the snake's belly, which is my favorite part, I kind of knew I made a great decision. I was really quite excited, honestly. I haven't been this excited to paint something in oil in a while. It's very different, like I said, from everything else I do in oil. I usually only do portraiture, which I love, don't get me wrong, but kind of doing this more fantastical, not realistic painting is super fun. And I'll say that this snake, you know, it looks realistic, and I'm using reference on Google of actual snakes, but you know, the color scheme, the lighting scenario, it's not like a photo realistic painting, and also I'm not copying a photo. This is straight improvised, original design. So it's kind of in that realm of realistic and also, you know, made up. So in terms of color and light, obviously the anatomy of the snake, these scales I'm making with those beautiful greens, they're kind of just represented scales, and the style I wanted to, achieving the texture I wanted to. And so this sword, I thought was basic, and again, I wanted basic, but I thought that the handle was not working for me. This is the handle shape in the hoodies and garments, and I looked up on Google kind of more traditional Roman swords, and they all sort of had this this grip with these finger slots, I guess you could say. And so I wanted to just change it really slightly into that. It made it a little more complex. The shape is a little more easy on the eyes. I think it's nice, and so I changed that real simple. I gessoed over it, and now we're just adding the kind of 3 values of this brown handle, and we'll rest on that because it's super easy, but that just gives enough dimension just in these 3 values. I also kind of darkened the gold metal plating on the sword. Obviously gold isn't like a lime green yellow, it's more of like a bronzy brown and green, and then there's the highlights that represent a shiny metal. So I changed that all up, all with oil. And you can also see that I'm live streaming here. I live stream every week on Patreon. So if you're into that, behind the scenes, real-time painting, check the Patreon out. And I spent a really long time kind of, you know, painting in between all of these crevices. And usually with acrylic paint, you know, I spray paint the back. I tape up the subject and spray paint the back. Here, I wanted a full-blown texturized, painterly style painting with oil. So we got her done. Looks great. Super excited. This is the background I wanted. Very simple, but really kind of just giving more light to the subject, which is the snake and the sword. And these are just the last final darkening marks to kind of really accentuate some of the curves and the twisting of the snake. Final highlights, making things lighter. I'm going in with a final warm green. It's almost basically a yellow for those highlights. And then I did this beautiful reflected blue light that I was really pumped upon, and it was very last minute also. I was like, what should I add? One more thing. So I added that blue reflected light. Also in the center, in the background, I kind of lightened it up. You could see those marks. And obviously the best part, pulling back this tape. And before we talk about the final painting, I want to talk about the hoodies because I have a lot to say about it. If you follow the channel, then you know exactly 1 year ago, I went to Peru, January of 2020, to film a short documentary for one of my best friends, REUBEN. He has a company based in Peru called REUBEN Oliver. It's a luxury knitwear company. So when I was out there filming the documentary for him, it was really great. There's a video on it. I met all of his manufacturers, I met his employees, I met everything that had to do with his company, which is all based out in Peru. And kind of from that point, it was the plan always to produce, you know, SLEW clothes from, you know, all of his connections with REUBEN in collaboration. And so from there, that was kind of the inception of the project. Now, a year later, we have it. This is 100% French terry cotton hoodies with 3 embroideries. Obviously, the SLEW signature that matches the painting, the chest sword, and the snake on the hood. You know, this quality is amazing. REUBEN does it the best. I'm so happy. Couldn't have made it without REUBEN. I'm really excited. That's why I just want to touch on it briefly, not one big advertisement. But, you know, my thinking, if you would like to hear about clothing, is I never want to be a fashion brand. I like to make clothing. I like to wear clothing. And instead of, you know, painting something and then making giclée prints, maybe edition of 100, $250 each, I can make 500 hoodies and sell them for $75, you know, and then people will actually wear them for 2 to 5 years instead of just having something on their wall. I eventually want to make prints, but they're a little more challenging. And I think people actually, you know, are more into kind of a limited edition wearable art print. And so this was the whole idea, the sword and serpent painting, copying the iconography, the exact imagery on to extremely high quality limited edition hoodies. Same with the beanies. The quality is just amazing. I just can't express it enough. I'm really happy with it, and it's just really exciting. I think this whole project, it was another giant experiment with REUBEN and the painting and the clothing, getting that all figured out. I just have so much promo. I wanted to talk about it, and it's available now, and that's it. And so this painting, just like the hoodies, was extremely fun. You know, like I said, oil painting fantastical things is something I don't do, and I think this really opened the door for me to kind of do larger scale narrative compositions in oil, you know, fantastical things that I'm into, whatever that may be. I don't know why I haven't really done much experimentation with fantastical characters and things like that with oil, but that's just how she goes. But moving forward, I think I'm really gonna start to do that. I'm super excited. If you stayed to this end of the video, I know I've been ranting, I have so much to say, but it's a new year, 2021. I have huge plans, actually, that I'll tell you briefly right now. In the spring and summer of 2021, I'm gonna be moving to New York City. I'm gonna be building a new studio there. I'm gonna be leaving this space to expand my operations in New York City. I'm gonna be hiring a team, hiring people. We're gonna start a podcast. I'm very excited, expanding the business. I've been working on this for over 2 years and it's finally happening. I'm very lucky, I'm very grateful, but I've been working hard for this, and I'm really excited. So we'll obviously roll out more news about this as time goes on, and we have so many epic projects planned for 2021. Also, this channel, follow on social media, on Instagram if you want to see the behind the scenes. I'm out of breath. Just kidding, but it's really exciting. This is kind of like the first big project of 2021. It was kind of a crazy time to get it all done, but I hope you enjoyed everything. I don't know if these are going to go fast, but definitely go check them out if you want them, because there's only a limited amount, only 400 hoodies. And that's it. See you in the next video.